Have you ever wondered why Destiny's Child really broke up? The press gave you reasons: creative differences, solo careers, timing. But what if that's not the truth? What if something else caused it? I know because I was there. I was a vocal producer during the final sessions. I saw things no intern should have seen. And I heard things no engineer could explain. Kelly and Michelle weren't pushed out. They were drained. Not by contracts, not by the industry, by something darker, something that lived below the studio. It wore Beyoncé's voice, like a dress rehearsal. And every time she stepped in that booth, she came out stronger. While the other girls left quieter, Beyoncé didn't just go solo. She carried something with her, something ancient, something hungry. And the first thing it whispered to me was, "Say my name." I've worked in a lot of studios. Some were chaotic home setups, wires spilling out of cracked walls, engineers drinking Sprite mixed with cheap vodka and hoping their laptops didn't overheat. Others were corporate soundproof temples where time moved like honey and money made people polite. But the one I'm talking about now, the one I still dream about, was different. This one felt aware. I was an assistant vocal producer at a high-end studio in Houston. It was early 2000s. I wasn't anybody important, not a big name, but I was around. I was useful. I adjusted levels. I pitched harmonies. I helped people find the right key when they were losing confidence. I was invisible, which is why I saw everything. The studio was elegant but strange. Long halls lined with green glass plaques, a break room with no windows, and at the far end of the second hallway, past the beer room, past the vocal lounge, was a door. No plaque, no keypad, just a heavy silver-handled door, cold to the touch and always locked. People called it storage, but no one ever brought gear in or out of it. When asked, the front desk would just shrug and say, "Maintenance access." But the air was different over there, colder still. And sometimes on the edge of silence, you'd hear a hum. A low, thick tone that didn't come from the walls or the gear. A tone you felt in your chest more than your ears. And the hum never stopped. It just waited. That door wasn't touched until they showed up. Destiny's Child came in that summer. Beyoncé, Kelly, Michelle, they were working on new material, group stuff, solo stuff. Nobody really knew. All we knew was that every label rep in the city had their eye on them. And every assistant like me had one job. Stay out of the way and don't mess it up. They were flawless. That's not exaggeration. Beyoncé walked in like she was born to own silence. Kelly had the softest, clearest tone I'd ever heard. Michelle had soul in her pinky finger. When the three of them harmonized, the board would light up in warm gold, like the system recognized them. But something else hung in the air. Tension. Everyone felt it. The engineers whispered that someone was going solo. The vocal coach said it was just gossip, but nobody really smiled when they said that. One day, Jay-Z arrived. No warning, no entourage. One moment he wasn't there, and the next he was standing in the hall behind me. I hadn't heard the door open. He was just there, like he'd stepped out of a wall. He didn't speak, didn't shake hands, just scanned the room like it was already his, then turned and walked toward the silver-handled door. I watched. He reached into his jacket and pulled out something I'd never seen anyone else use in that building. A long matte black key. Not a card. A key. He unlocked the door. The metal groaned softly as it opened, and what I saw inside made no sense. Stairs, narrow and steep, leading down into shadow. I had never once in my life considered there might be something below the studio. We were already on the first floor. There was no basement, no mention in the blueprints I'd peeked at. Nothing. Jay-Z turned back, once like he was waiting. Beyoncé followed him, without a word. Her face was blank. Not in a mean way, just neutral. Still, like she was on autopilot, like she already knew what was down there. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just watched that door close behind them like it was sealing in something holy or cursed. 20 minutes passed, then they returned, calm, casual, like nothing had happened. Jay-Z walked out first. Beyoncé followed, humming something under her breath. A slow melody, wordless. They walked past me. Neither of them looked at me. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. I could have been a plant in the corner, a chair, a memory. I didn't ask questions. I just logged out and went home early. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't stop hearing that melody. It didn't sound like anything I'd heard before, but it stuck in my mind like a splinter. Slow, simple, dangerous. The next day, things got weirder. Kelly and Michelle came in for solo vocal sessions. They were laughing when they walked in, dressed in bright colors, both full of energy. Michelle had a Starbucks. Kelly had a notebook full of lyrics she was excited to try out. When the session started, the main engineer, a guy I trusted, told them, "You're both recording downstairs today." I froze. Kelly blinked. "Wait, downstairs?" "Yeah," he said casually. "Jay said y'all could try it. Something about the mic down there being warmer." They nodded and walked back toward the silver handle door.
It was open for them.
I stood at the console in Studio B and waited. I could feel it in my gut. The hum was louder now, more insistent, like the building itself was tense. An hour passed.
2.
Then they came back, not laughing, not smiling. Kelly walked ahead, eyes lowered. Michelle trailed behind her. Her hands were trembling. The Starbucks cup was gone. Neither spoke to anyone. Michelle looked at me as they passed for just a second, like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. She just walked away. That night, I stayed after hours. I pulled up their session stems. Before and after the booth. Before, rich, emotional takes, full of life, full of presence. After, still technically strong but cold, hollow, like someone else was wearing their voices. I compared VBR, breath control, tiny vocal quirks. They were still there, but something wasn't. And Beyoncé's tracks, they were sharper, brighter. Somehow her harmonies now included textures that didn't used to be hers. Like someone else's tone was layered underneath. I played them on loop. The higher the volume, the more I felt it, like something was breathing under the vocals, something listening back. And then I heard it right at the end of Beyoncé's latest vocal stem. Barely audible, behind the reverb, was that same humming melody she sang after coming back from the booth below. Except now it was deeper, slower, like a male voice. It was only 3 words whispered, "Say my name." I tried to forget what I heard. I told myself it was a mixing glitch. Reverb playing tricks. Maybe one of the interns layered a scratch harmony they weren't supposed to. Maybe I was tired. Maybe my brain wanted to find patterns that weren't there. But that voice, those 3 whispered words, "Say my name," they didn't sound like Beyoncé or Kelly or Michelle. They sounded like something ancient using their voices as a costume. That I went back to the studio the next day. Told myself I'd do what I always did. Clean sessions, line up harmonies, keep my head down. But I couldn't shake what I saw yesterday. Michelle came in first, full of energy, bouncing with caffeine and creativity. Her lyrics were already scribbled in a notebook. She was humming something gospel-inspired while fixing her lip gloss in the mirror. She seemed like herself again. Then they sent her downstairs. 2 hours later, she came back up. Her notebook was gone. Her lips were pale. She looked thinner, like something had been wrung out of her from the inside. She didn't even hum anymore. The following afternoon, it was Kelly. She showed up beaming. She was cracking jokes with the engineer, running little warm-up scales that made the intern stop and stare. She was ready, excited, radiant. Then they told her the booth was open, the one downstairs. She nodded, didn't even question it. She wanted it. And when she came back up, she was quiet, like she'd just seen something terrible and was trying to convince herself it hadn't happened. Her posture was slumped, her laughter gone. The only sound she made was a low, dry cough. After she left, the hallway stayed cold for hours. I didn't know how to explain it. It was like the booth wasn't just taking their voices. It was taking something else. Something you couldn't EQ or master. That night, I stayed after everyone left. I isolated Beyoncé's vocals again. Just out of curiosity, I told myself, just to clean up an old harmony stem. But when I soloed her BGVs, I heard it. Kelly's breath patterns. That's not something you can fake. Every singer has a rhythm, an instinctual inhale. Beyoncé's always had tight control, sharp, clean breaths. But this track had Kelly's softness, her delayed sighs between words. I ran it again, checked the raw stems still there. I muted it and soloed another track. Michelle's V. Beyoncé had always sung cleanly, with minimal tremble unless the arrangement called for it. But here in the bridge there was a flutter, delicate and trembling that matched Michelle's exactly. I cross-keyed it with an earlier group song. It lined up perfectly. Same pitch bend, same soul. It was like pieces of them were being woven into her voice. I leaned back, hands trembling. That's when I felt it. The room had gone colder. Not air-conditioned cold. Dead air cold. Like the heat had been sucked out, replaced with nothing. And then I sensed someone behind me. I turned slowly. Jay-Z and Beyoncé were standing there. No sound, no footsteps, just there. Beyoncé stood closest. Her eyes weren't cruel, but they weren't curious either. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me like I was already forgotten. Jay-Z stood a step behind her, silent, still. He didn't blink. My shirt clung to my back. I felt sweat bead across my forehead. My throat locked up. They said nothing. I turned back to the board, pretending to work. My hands hovered over the sliders, but didn't move. Then Beyoncé did something that made my heart spike. She hummed just one note.
Quiet.
But it didn't match the song playing through the monitors. It was off-key, off-time, a glitch in reality. My hands clenched. I stared at the screen, pretending to be focused, but I felt like I was underwater, like the air around me had thickened. My skin itched with tension I couldn't place. My own heartbeat became louder than the mix. Then they left.
No footsteps, no volvie.
I was alone again. The room remained cold for a long time after they were gone. I sat frozen in the chair, staring at the sliders, listening to nothing. When I finally had the courage to move again, I closed the session, shut down the system. But before I powered off the speakers, I thought I heard that humming again coming from beneath the floorboards. The next morning, I came in early and pulled up 3 raw files. One from Kelly before she ever went into the downstairs booth. One from Michelle. One from Beyoncé. After her visit, I aligned the harmonies, looked at the waveforms, ran spectral analysis, same formants, same frequency modulation. It was impossible. Each of them had been distinct. 3 women with unique voices. That's what made the group magic. But Beyoncé's solo vocal now carried tones that didn't originate in her throat. I was hearing Michelle's flutter. Kelly's softness inside Beyoncé's voice. Not like she was copying them, like they'd been transferred, like the booth had taken their essence and given it to her. And now Beyoncé's voice was growing more complex, more commanding, not just Beyoncé, not just solo artist, something else, something combined. The next few days, I kept watching the pattern. Michelle would show up radiant. Kelly would walk in energized, excited, ready to create, ready to record. And every time they left that basement booth, they walked out like something had been taken from them. Not just their voice, not just their energy, their spark, their it. The thing people can't define, but everyone can feel. The part of an artist that makes a crowd stop breathing.
Gone.
And Beyoncé, she seemed more alive than ever. More precise, more magnetic, her timing perfect, her eyes unreadable. That week, she recorded a vocal that made one of the engineers cry. A grown man.
He said he didn't know why.
He just felt like he was hearing the future, like her voice had layers to it. He didn't know what he was saying. But I did. It was like listening to someone who'd swallowed the talents of others and wasn't even pretending to hide it. I sat in the booth alone after midnight. Just me and the session files. And I finally admitted the thing I'd been trying to ignore. The booth below didn't just record voices. It fed on them. It didn't steal melodies or lyrics. It stole essence, soul, identity, and it gave it all to her. They told me it was a technical issue. Something about the downstairs mic clipping, maybe wiring. They weren't sure. Just a small glitch, they said. Not urgent, but could I check it? Nobody sends me to fix wiring. That's not my job. But they asked anyway. By then, I already knew it wasn't about audio. It was an invitation. I stood in front of the silver-handled door again. It was already unlocked this time. The hallway beyond it pulsed with heat. I descended the stairs, slow and cautious, my hand tracing the wall. It wasn't as narrow as I remembered. It was tighter. The air got thicker the deeper I went until I felt like I was walking into the lungs of something alive. At the bottom, a single bulb flickered overhead. It gave off a warm amber hue, like dying candlelight. The booth door was cracked open. I stepped inside, and the moment I did, the world disappeared. No sound, no static, no hum, not even the sound of my own breath. It was like my eardrums had been sealed shut. Silence like vacuum, heavy, dead. The walls were darker than I remembered, almost black. The soundproofing foam seemed to pulse in and out of the light, and in the center of the booth stood the golden microphone. It was the only thing that glowed. Set on a low, cracked pedestal, the mic pulsed softly, like a resting heart. Its surface shimmered faintly, like it had once been molten and never fully cooled. It didn't look like it belonged in this time or this world. I took a step closer, and that's when I felt it. Something inside me moved. My throat tightened. My tongue felt swollen. My lips parted, but I didn't know why. "Say it," a voice whispered. Not out loud, not in my ears, inside my head. A voice that sounded like me, but older, emptier, hungrier. "Say my name," I blinked. "What name?" I whispered. My own voice echoed strangely, like it was bouncing off wet stone. The mic pulsed harder. "Say it." I didn't know what to say. My mind raced through names. Beyonce, Jay-Z, God. None of them felt right, but something in me wanted to say it badly, like I'd known it once, long ago, like it was buried in my bones.
"Say my name," she said it.
That's how she became me. The glow around the mic intensified. I stepped back, but the door slammed shut behind me hard. I lunged at the handle.
Locked.
My breath hitched. My palms slid against the cold metal. No give. I turned back to the mic, chest heaving.
"I don't know it," I said.
"I don't know who you are." The booth vibrated. The walls seemed to ripple. And then the mic screamed. Not a sound. Not a scream in the air. It screamed inside me. "Say my name." I dropped to my knees, clutching my ears though there was no sound in them. My mind felt like it was splitting. I tried to speak anything, but the words collapsed in my throat. The mic flickered violently. The light blinked in sync with my pulse. "You want this," the voice said. "You've always wanted this. Say it, and you'll never be invisible again." I felt it crawling up from my stomach. Something unspoken trying to force itself into language. A name without vowels. A name made of hunger. A name shaped like silence. My lips trembled. I almost said it, and then click. The door behind me unlocked. I turned. The silence broke. A soft hum returned like the building was breathing again. The golden mic dimmed. Its glow faded back to a soft pulse. I stared at it for a second longer. And then I ran. I bolted up the stairs, feet crashing against each step. I didn't care how loud I was. I didn't stop until I was back in the hallway, heart pounding like a drum line, throat burning. The silver-handled door closed behind me. I didn't look back. The door let me go. No alarms, no voices, no one waiting outside. I stood in the hallway for a long time, shaking. I looked down at my arms and realized I'd scratched myself trying to get out. Thin red lines. I didn't feel them when it happened. I felt them now. The studio above was silent, humming softly with normal life. Engineers sipping coffee. A vocalist warming up in Studio B. No one asked me where I'd been. No one even looked. It was like nothing happened. Like the booth below was never real, but it was. And I couldn't forget what it asked me to say. I didn't tell anyone. I knew better. You don't talk about things like that in this business. Not if you want to keep your key card. So I went back to work. I loaded tracks, smiled when I needed to, nodded through meetings, but something in me had changed. I couldn't listen to music the same way anymore. Every beat felt hollow. Every vocal line felt borrowed. Kelly's first solo album came out a few months later. It had some good songs, a few nice runs. The critics said she was finding her voice. Michelle released hers soon after. People called it safe, honest, underrated, but no one used the word essential. They both charted briefly, then faded, like background noise. Beyoncé, though, she became something else. Each new release felt heavier, like it carried the weight of more than one person. Her voice grew wider, deeper, in some songs. It sounded like she was harmonizing with herself in ways that shouldn't be possible. Not layered, not processed, like two souls in one body. I couldn't unhear it. Then came the day I truly knew I was working late again, old habits, and reviewing stems from her latest single before it went to mastering. I was supposed to just approve the EQ settings, but I soloed her lead vocal. And in the gaps between words, I heard it. My own breath pattern. Short inhale, delayed exhale. The kind of rhythm I'd used for years when I was nervous at the board. It wasn't a sample. It wasn't placed. It was natural, like it had come from her own lungs. I froze. Then I played it again. Still there. I checked the session logs, the original raw takes. The breath pattern was in the live recording, not added later. And just like that, I knew the booth had taken something from me, too. Not all of me. Not like Kelly, not like Michelle, but just enough. Enough to be heard faintly in her voice. Enough to make me part of the mix. I stared at the console. My fingers hovered over the delete key. I selected the stem, heart pounding, and hit delete.
Gone.
I exhaled. But when I refreshed the project, it was back. The stem reappeared. No timestamp change, no backup restore, just there like it had never left. I deleted it again. It reappeared. No error message, no crash, just refusal. I unplugged the drive, closed the session, walked outside, and sat on the loading dock for nearly an hour. That night, I dreamed of the booth. Only this time, I wasn't alone inside. The foam-lined walls were breathing slowly, rhythmically, like lungs around me. I turned and saw them, Kelly and Michelle. Not standing, not moving, embedded, pressed into the foam like fossils. Their eyes shut, their mouths open, mid-scream or mid-ong. I couldn't tell. Their fingers twitched slightly like they were trying to claw their way out, but no sound came out. And behind them, the golden mic glowed, brighter than before, pulsing with sound I couldn't hear, but felt in my chest. It was calling me again. I woke up in a cold sweat, gasping, my pillow soaked through. The hum was still in my ears. I knew then I couldn't stay. Not in that studio, not around that room, not with that mic still there waiting. I never left the industry. These days, I'm a director of A&R strategy at one of the biggest labels in the world. Mid-level, not famous, not powerless, just useful. I don't mix tracks anymore. I don't wear headphones unless I have to. I sign talent, oversee rollouts, sit in meetings, and every now and then someone will say, "This new artist, they've got that at Factor." And I'll nod. I'll play my role. I'll write the email, approve the session, smile on the Zoom call. But in the back of my mind, I always wonder whose was it first? You heard the story. Maybe you don't believe it. Maybe you do. But tell me this. If someone's at Factor made them famous, would you still support them if you knew it was taken from someone else? Drop your answer in the comments. Let's see who still listens with their own ears.